Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the massive circular chamber of the Galactic Council, her small human delegation dwarfed by the towering representatives of dozens of alien species. The Zentari delegation alone took up nearly a quarter of the chamber, their crystalline forms catching the artificial light and throwing rainbow patterns across the polished floor. To her left, the Vex High Ambassador's tentacles writhed in what she had learned was their equivalent of amused laughter. The human delegation wishes to address the matter of the Kepler 442 system, announced the council speaker, a massive slug-like being whose voice boomed through translation devices. Though I fail to see why we should waste time on such trivial concerns. 1. Sarah stood, her modest height making her feel like a child among giants. 3 years of diplomatic training had prepared her for this moment, but nothing could have truly readied her for the sheer condescension that radiated from every alien face in the chamber. "Honored council members," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "We've received disturbing reports about activities in the Kepler 442 system. Our long-range sensors have detected massive strip mining operations on planets that were designated as protected under the Preservation of Worlds Treaty." A sound like grinding metal filled the chamber as the Thraxian Prime Minister laughed. His species looked like walking tanks, all sharp angles and armored plating. "The humans speak of treaties as if they understand such things," he rumbled. "Your species has been in space for less than 2 centuries. We have been following galactic law for millennia. The Preservation Treaty specifically protects any world showing signs of developing life," Sarah continued, pulling up holographic data on her tablet. "These worlds have complex ecosystems that are being destroyed for mineral extraction. Mining operations that are entirely legal under subsection 447B of the Resource Allocation Accords," interrupted the Zentari Trade Minister, her crystalline voice like wind chimes in a storm. "A treaty signed long before your species even knew other worlds existed." Sarah felt her jaw clench. "But that directly contradicts the Preservation Treaty, which was signed after Earth joined the Council." "Ah, but you see," the Vex High Ambassador's tentacles swayed hypnotically as he spoke. "The Resource Allocation Accords take precedence, as they were established by founding council members. Earth, being a junior member, must accept existing agreements." The chamber filled with what Sarah could only describe as alien laughter. The sound was horrible. A mixture of grinding crystals, whale songs, and electronic screeches that made her teeth ache. "Furthermore," continued the Thraxian, "Earth's own environmental record hardly qualifies your species to lecture others on planetary preservation." Sarah's tablet chimed softly. A message from Admiral Torres back on Earth. Her eyes widened as she read it quickly. The situation was worse than they had thought. "Honored Council," she tried again. "Our analysis shows that at least 12 worlds in the Kepler system are being completely sterilized. Entire biospheres that took millions of years to develop are being wiped out in months. Efficiency is to be admired," commented the Nexari representative, a being that looked like a walking tree with too many eyes. "Perhaps if Earth's mining operations were half as productive, your species wouldn't be so dependent on council trade agreements." Sarah bit back her first 3 responses, all of which would have gotten her thrown out of the chamber. "The point isn't efficiency. It's the preservation of life. These worlds had a chance to develop sentient species given enough time, and now they have a chance to fuel the expansion of species that have already achieved sentience," the Zentari Trade Minister replied smoothly. "The Council has always prioritized practical advancement over theoretical possibilities. Besides," added the Vex High Ambassador, "what would Earth have us do? Halt profitable operations because of human sentiment? Your species has contributed so little to the galactic community that your opinions carry minimal weight in such matters." The words hit Sarah like physical blows. She had expected resistance, but not this level of casual dismissal. Earth had been a council member for 50 years, but clearly that meant nothing to these beings who measured time in geological epochs. "Earth has contributed plenty to the galactic community," she said, her voice rising despite her diplomatic training. "Our medical advances have helped dozens of species. Our agricultural techniques have solved food shortages on 7 worlds. Our artistic and cultural exchanges have enriched." "Yes, Yes, the council speaker interrupted with a wave of his massive appendage. Humans are very proud of their small contributions. But we are discussing serious matters of galactic economics and resource management. These are complex issues that require understanding of systems your species has barely begun to comprehend. Sarah's hands trembled as she looked around the chamber. Every alien face showed the same expression, if it could be called that. Condescension mixed with barely concealed amusement. They weren't just dismissing her arguments, they were dismissing humanity itself. The Kepler 442 mining operations will continue, announced the Zentari Trade Minister. Any interference with lawful, council-sanctioned activities would constitute a violation of the Non-Interference Accord, punishable by expulsion from the council and immediate trade sanctions. You can't be serious, Sarah said. You're essentially saying we have to watch you destroy entire worlds because of legal technicalities. Not technicalities, corrected the Thraxian. Laws. Laws that keep the galaxy functioning smoothly, while primitive species learn their place in the cosmic order. The Nexari representatives' many eyes blinked in sequence. Perhaps this is a learning opportunity for Earth. Understanding one's limitations is the first step toward eventual growth. Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. Are you threatening us? Threatening. The Vex High Ambassador's tentacles rippled with what she now recognized as laughter. My dear human, you misunderstand the nature of power in this galaxy. We don't threaten species like Earth, we simply educate them. The Council has been patient with Earth's naive idealism, added the Council speaker. But patience has limits. Your species would do well to remember that Council membership is a privilege, not a right. The message was clear. Sit down, shut up, and accept that humanity was nothing more than a barely tolerated annoyance in galactic affairs. Sarah looked at her small delegation, 3 other humans who had spent decades preparing for diplomatic careers, and saw her own helpless rage reflected in their faces. The matter of Kepler 442 is closed, declared the council speaker. The mining operations will proceed without interference. Earth's objections are noted and filed accordingly. Sarah knew that filed accordingly meant thrown in the digital equivalent of a trash bin. She gathered her materials slowly, mind racing. The legal pathways were blocked. The moral arguments had been dismissed. The threats were barely concealed. As the council moved on to other business, Sarah caught fragments of conversation from the alien delegations. They spoke of Earth like adults, discussing a child's tantrum, amusing, perhaps, but ultimately irrelevant. Typical human emotionalism. They'll learn eventually. 50 years of membership and they still don't understand how things work. The worst part was that they weren't even angry at Earth's protests. Anger would have implied that they took humanity seriously enough to feel threatened. Instead, there was only patronizing amusement, the way someone might chuckle at a pet that had learned a new trick. Outside the chamber, Sarah's communication device buzzed with an encrypted message from Admiral Torres. The text was brief but loaded with implications. Situation deteriorating rapidly. Council may have miscalculated human response parameters. Await further instructions. Creasing, Council mining. Council may have miscalculated human response. Council may have miscalculated human response. Dr. James Park, her chief science advisor, leaned close as they walked through the station corridors. Sarah, the mineral surveys we received yesterday. The Kepler system isn't just being strip-mined. They're doing something else out there. What do you mean? The energy signatures don't match standard mining operations. There's something bigger happening. Something the Council doesn't want us to know about. Sarah felt the pieces of a puzzle clicking together in her mind, though she couldn't see the full picture yet. The Council's aggressive dismissal of Earth's concerns, the legal loopholes that seemed too convenient, the threats barely disguised as education. How long until our transport leaves? She asked. 6 hours, replied Dr. Park. But Sarah, there's something else. I've been monitoring Council communications, and there's chatter about Phase 2. Beginning ahead of schedule. Phase 2 of what? I don't know. But whatever it is, the Kepler operation is just the beginning. That evening, as Sarah sat in her cramped quarters aboard the human transport ship, She reviewed everything that had happened. The Council's arrogance was breathtaking. But it was also revealing. They had grown so accustomed to being the dominant powers in the galaxy that they couldn't conceive of real resistance from what they saw as lesser species. Her secure communicator chimed with another message from Earth. This one was from someone much higher up the command structure than Admiral Torres. The message was simple but carried the weight of history. Return to Earth immediately. All diplomatic protocols are hereby suspended pending review. Prepare for significant policy changes. Anin. Pontak. Sarah stared at the message for a long time. In 50 years of Council membership, Earth had never suspended diplomatic protocols. The language was bureaucratic, but she could read between the lines. Something fundamental was about to change in how humanity dealt with the galactic community. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, Sarah looked back at the Council station growing smaller in the view screen. The massive structure housed representatives from hundreds of species, all of them convinced of their own superiority and the natural order that placed them above newcomers like humanity. They had no idea what was coming. Dr. Park joined her at the observation deck. What do you think will happen now? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, watching the stars streak past. I think the Council is about to learn something about humans that they've never bothered to understand. I think the Council is about the tea, which is, we don't just roll over when someone tells us our place in the cosmic order. Sarah's reflection in the view screen showed a woman who looked older than she had that morning. And we definitely don't stand by and watch genocide just because someone calls it legal. The journey back to Earth would take 3 days. Sarah had a feeling that by the time they arrived, the galaxy would be a very different place. The Council had made a critical error in their assessment of humanity. They had confused Earth's diplomatic patience with weakness, and their legal maneuvering with actual authority over human actions. As the ship continued its jump toward Earth, Sarah began drafting her report. But this wouldn't be a standard diplomatic summary. This would be a complete analysis of Council power structures, their military capabilities, their resource dependencies, and most importantly, their vulnerabilities. Because if the message from Earth meant what she thought it meant, humanity was done playing by rules designed to keep them powerless. The Council had scoffed at Earth for the last time. Admiral Elena Torres stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays showing every Council world, trade route, and military installation within 500 light-years of Earth. The room hummed with activity as analysts, strategists, and military commanders worked at stations that had been secretly prepared for this moment over the past decade. Ma'am, Ambassador Chen's transport just dropped out of hyperspace, reported Colonel Williams from the communications station. She's requesting immediate debrief protocols. Patch her through to Conference Room 7. Full security encryption. Torres turned to the massive central display, where a real-time map of Council space pulsed with data streams. And initiate Prometheus Protocol. All stations, all assets. General Harrison, the grizzled commander of Earth's Special Operations Division, looked up from his tactical display. Elena, are you sure we're ready for this? Once we light this fuse, there's no going back. Marcus, they just told our ambassador that 12 worlds being sterilized is acceptable because humans are too primitive to understand galactic economics. Torres's voice was steel, wrapped in velvet. They've made their position clear. Now we make ours clear. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, Earth's chief xenobiologist and the woman who had first identified the true scope of what was happening in the Kepler system, approached the central display. Admiral, the latest analysis from our deep space monitoring stations confirms what we suspected. The Council isn't just strip mining those worlds. They're conducting some kind of biological harvesting operation. Explain. The energy signatures indicate massive biomass processing facilities. They're not just killing the ecosystems on those planets. They're converting them into something else. Industrial-scale biological transformation. Dr. Reeves pulled up detailed sensor readings. Whatever they're doing, it requires complete sterilization of existing life forms first. Torres studied the data, her expression growing darker by the moment. How long have they been doing this? Based on our historical analysis of supposedly routine mining operations, at least 2 centuries. Probably longer. Doctor? Reeves's voice was grim. We estimate they've processed over 300 worlds this way. 300 worlds. Torres let the number hang in the air. And they have the audacity to lecture us about environmental responsibility. Ambassador Chen's voice came through the speakers as her ship docked with Earth's orbital station. Admiral, requesting priority debrief. The Council situation is worse than we thought. They're not just dismissing our concerns. They're actively threatening expulsion if we interfere with their operations. Copy that, Ambassador. Report to Conference Room 7 immediately upon arrival. Torres turned to her senior staff. Ladies and gentlemen, as of this moment, Earth is withdrawing from all Council oversight protocols. Dr. Reeves, how long until we have full analysis of their biological processing operations? 12 hours for preliminary findings, 3 days for complete tactical assessment. We don't have 3 days. Torres brought up a new display showing shipping lanes and communication networks. Marcus, what's the status on Operation Backdoor? General Harrison smiled for the first time in weeks. All assets in position. We've had infiltration teams monitoring Council communications for 18 months. Their security is impressive against conventional espionage, but they never expected anyone to develop quantum-encrypted human operatives. Explain that to someone who doesn't have a PhD in covert operations. We've had people inside Council facilities for over a year. Not spies in the traditional sense, legitimate human employees who happen to have access to quantum communication devices that the Council can't detect or decrypt. Harrison pulled up a network diagram. Scientists, engineers, maintenance workers, cultural exchange students. All of them, feeding us information about Council operations, military capabilities, and infrastructure vulnerabilities. Torres nodded grimly. And what have we learned? That the Council is a lot more vulnerable than they want anyone to know. Their entire economy depends on a handful of critical resource processing stations. Their military is spread thin across thousands of systems, and most importantly, they've grown complacent. They haven't faced a real threat in centuries. Dr. Sarah Nakamura, Earth's chief military strategist and a woman who had spent 20 years studying galactic warfare tactics, stepped forward. Admiral, we've identified 47 critical infrastructure targets that would cripple Council operations if hit simultaneously. But that's not even the most interesting part. End quote. Go on. Their entire communication network relies on quantum entanglement stations positioned at 17 key points. Take out those stations, and you fragment the Council into isolated sectors that can't coordinate with each other. Dr. Nakamura's smile was predatory. They built their empire on the assumption that no one would ever be able to threaten their infrastructure simultaneously across multiple star systems. And can we? Admiral, Earth has been developing interstellar capability for 50 years while playing the role of junior Council member. During that time, we've quietly built a fleet that makes their military look like museum pieces. They know about our diplomatic ships and trade vessels. They don't know about the Phantom Fleet. Torres raised an eyebrow. Phantom Fleet? Oh, one? General Harrison activated another display, showing ship schematics that looked nothing like the standard human vessels the Council was familiar with. Stealth ships using technology we reverse-engineered and improved from every species we've encountered. Faster than Zentari interceptors, better armed than Thraxian battleships, and completely invisible to their sensor networks. How many ships are we talking about? 237 fully operational stealth vessels, currently positioned throughout Council space. They've been there for 6 months, gathering intelligence and preparing for this moment. Ambassador Chen arrived at that moment, still wearing her diplomatic attire but with the look of someone who had seen behind the mask of galactic civilization. Admiral, I need to report that the Council isn't just dismissing our concerns about the Kepler system. They're planning to accelerate their operations there. And they've suggested that Earth's continued membership in the Council depends on our acceptance of their authority in all matters. In other words, shut up and obey, or get kicked out. That's exactly what they mean. But there's more. Chen pulled up her own data files. I managed to record most of the proceedings. The way they talk about us, about all younger species, they don't see us as equals or even junior partners. They see us as resources to be managed. Dr. Reeves looked up from her analysis station. That aligns with what we're seeing in their biological processing operations. They're not just harvesting dead worlds, they're creating the conditions for harvesting. Meaning they introduce their species to the Council, let them develop for a few decades or centuries, study their biological and technological contributions, and then manufacture crises that justify resource extraction from their worlds. Dr. Reeves' face was pale. The Council doesn't have member species. It has a farm. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Torres looked around at her staff. All of them brilliant humans who had spent their careers preparing for interstellar diplomacy and cooperation. Now they were learning that the entire galactic order was built on calculated exploitation. Admiral, Colonel Williams called from the communications station, "We're receiving priority transmissions from our deep space monitoring network. The Council has just announced an emergency session for tomorrow. Topic: Addressing the Earth problem." The Earth problem? Torres's voice was dangerous. Yes, ma'am. They're discussing potential responses to what they're calling human overreach in galactic affairs. The session is closed to Earth representatives. General Harrison pulled up military deployment data. Elena, Council security forces are moving toward Earth's sector. Not an invasion fleet, but definitely a show of force. They want us to understand the consequences of challenging their authority. Torres studied the tactical displays, her mind racing through scenarios and possibilities. The Council had made their position clear. They saw humanity as a problem to be solved, not a species to be respected. They had built their entire civilization on the exploitation of younger races, hidden behind legal frameworks and diplomatic doublespeak. Dr. Nakamura, if we implemented simultaneous strikes against their infrastructure targets, how long would it take to cripple their ability to coordinate a response? 47 minutes for complete network disruption. Maybe an hour if they have backup systems we haven't identified. And our stealth fleet could hit all targets simultaneously? Yes, ma'am. We've been planning for this scenario for 2 years. Every ship knows its target. Every commander has sealed orders. Every tactical element is in place. Torres walked to the central display, studying the vast network of Council civilization. Hundreds of species, thousands of worlds, millions of years of development, all of it built on a foundation of exploitation and contempt for younger races. They called us the Earth problem, she said quietly. They think we're a minor irritation that can be managed through legal maneuvering and shows of force. Ambassador Chen spoke up. Admiral, what are you thinking? I one of the Cid. Torres turned to face her staff, and they saw something in her expression that made several of them step back. I'm thinking that the Council is about to learn that the Earth problem is bigger than they imagined. Ma'am, they want to manage us like they've managed every other species. They want us to accept our place in their carefully constructed hierarchy. They want us to watch while they sterilize worlds, and call it legal. Torres's voice grew stronger with each word. They've built their entire civilization on the assumption that younger species will always submit to their authority. General Harrison smiled grimly. And they're about to find out that humans don't submit. No, they're about to find out something much more fundamental than that. Torres activated the primary communication system, connecting her to every human military installation in known space. They're about to learn that when you call something the Earth problem, you better be prepared for the Earth solution. Admiral, Dr. Nakamura said carefully, if we do this, there's no going back. We'll be at war with the entire galactic community. Will we? Or will we be freeing the galactic community from a system that treats them as resources to be harvested? Torres looked around the room one more time. The Council has shown us exactly what they think of treaties, of preservation agreements, of the rights of younger species. They've made it clear that law exists to serve their interests, not to protect anyone else. She paused, letting the weight of the decision settle on everyone present. In 6 hours, every Council communication relay will go dark simultaneously. Their resource processing stations will be destroyed. Their military command structures will be eliminated, and their biological harvesting operations will be permanently shut down. Torres's voice was calm, but her words carried the weight of historical inevitability. The Council scoffed at Earth because they thought we were just another species that would learn to accept our place in their system. And now? Ambassador Chen asked. Now they're going to learn that the Earth problem isn't about one species challenging their authority. Torres smiled. And it was not a pleasant expression. It's about what happens when someone finally says no to a system built on exploitation and calls it what it really is. The war room fell silent, except for the hum of computers processing the final details of humanity's response to galactic civilization. In 6 hours, the Council would convene to discuss the Earth problem. They had no idea that by then, the Earth solution would already be in motion. The Council chamber was buzzing with activity as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for the emergency session. The Zentari delegation had arrived early, their crystalline forms reflecting the chamber's lights in patterns that spoke of satisfaction and anticipated resolution. The Thraxian Prime Minister had brought additional security, confident that a show of force would remind everyone of the natural order of galactic politics. Today we address the Earth problem, announced the Council speaker, his massive form settling into the central podium. Recent human behavior has demonstrated a concerning disregard for established protocols and galactic law. The Vex High Ambassador's tentacles swayed with amusement. Perhaps it's time to consider whether Earth has outgrown its usefulness as a council member. Their naive idealism has become increasingly disruptive. The Zentari Consortium agrees, stated the Trade Minister, her voice like crystal bells. Earth's economic contributions are minimal, and their constant interference with legitimate business operations cannot be tolerated indefinitely. Around the chamber, murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled delegates. The consensus was clear. Humanity had overstepped its bounds, and correction was necessary. Several species that had never particularly liked the Council's methods remained silent, unwilling to risk their own positions by defending Earth. I propose a formal censure, declared the Thraxian Prime Minister. Earth will accept Council authority in all matters, or face immediate expulsion and economic sanctions. The Nexari representatives' many eyes blinked in sequence. A reasonable approach. Earth must learn that membership requires accepting one's place in the cosmic hierarchy. As the various delegates voiced their support for harsh measures against humanity, none of them noticed that their communication devices had gone completely silent. The quantum entanglement networks that connected them to their home worlds had been functioning normally just minutes before, but now showed only static. The Council speaker was in the middle of formally opening the vote when every screen in the chamber suddenly activated, displaying the image of a human woman in military uniform. Admiral Torres looked directly into the camera with the calm confidence of someone holding all the cards. Greetings, members of the Galactic Council. I am Admiral Elena Torres of Earth Defense Command. As you have been discussing the Earth problem, we thought it appropriate to present our solution. The chamber erupted in outraged voices as the aliens realized their session was being broadcast. The Thraxian Prime Minister rose to his full, intimidating height. This is an outrageous breach of Council security. How dare you? How dare we? What? Torres interrupted smoothly. Interrupt your discussion about whether to punish us for objecting to genocide? Or perhaps you're upset that we've been listening to your private communications for the past 18 months? The Zentari Trade Minister's crystalline form blazed with angry light. Impossible. Our security systems are impenetrable. Your security systems are impressive against conventional espionage, Torres agreed. But you designed them to stop the kind of spies your species would send. You never considered that humans might approach the problem differently. On the screens around the chamber, tactical displays began appearing. Star charts showing every major Council installation, complete with detailed structural analyses and vulnerability assessments. The aliens watched in growing horror as their most secret facilities were laid bare with precision that should have been impossible. For the past 2 years, Torres continued, we've been conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history, not through hacking or infiltration in the traditional sense, but through something your species have never truly understood about humans. And what is that? The Council speaker demanded. his voice booming with authority that suddenly sounded hollow. "We excel at being underestimated. Every human scientist, engineer, maintenance worker, and cultural exchange student that you've graciously allowed into your facilities has been gathering information, not as spies, but as observers who notice things you never thought to hide from primitives." The chamber screens shifted to show real-time feeds from across Council space. Massive industrial stations, military shipyards, resource processing facilities, and communication hubs, all of them displaying the same message in multiple languages. Facility secured by Earth Defense Command. What have you done?" whispered the Vex High Ambassador, his tentacles trembling. "We've implemented a comprehensive solution to the Earth problem," Torres replied. "In the past 4 hours, Earth forces have secured 47 critical infrastructure targets across Council space. Every major communication relay, every primary resource processing station, every military command facility that coordinates your operations." General Harrison appeared beside Torres on the screens. "We've also taken the liberty of shutting down your biological harvesting operations in the Kepler system and 17 other locations. Turns out that when you're not trying to hide behind legal technicalities, stopping genocide is remarkably straightforward." The Zentari Trade Minister's voice rose to a crystalline shriek. "This is an act of war. We will mobilize every fleet, every military asset in Council space." "With what communication network?" Torres asked mildly. "Your quantum entanglement relays are offline. Your military coordination protocols are down. Your resource supply chains have been severed. Even if you could coordinate a response, what would you attack us with?" "Can expect it is." New displays appeared showing the Council's military assets, ship after ship, station after station, all marked with Earth Defense Command identifiers. The aliens stared in disbelief as they realized the scope of what had happened. Dr. Nakamura joined the presentation. "The Council military relies on standardized tactics, centralized command structures, and overwhelming technological superiority. Unfortunately for you, we've spent 50 years studying your methods while developing countermeasures you never saw coming. Your stealth technology alone should be impossible," protested the Nixari representative. "Our sensors can detect anything in known space." "Your sensors can detect anything built with known technology, Doctor," Nakamura corrected. "We've been reverse engineering and improving every piece of alien technology we've encountered for 5 decades. The ships currently occupying your space are invisible to your sensors, faster than your interceptors, and armed with weapons that your shielding can't stop." The Council speaker struggled to maintain his composure. "Even if you've managed this temporary disruption, you cannot hold our entire civilization hostage. The galaxy will not stand for human aggression." Torres smiled, and the expression was genuinely warm. "That's where you've made your biggest mistake. You assume this is about human aggression. But we're not your enemy." "Then what do you call this?" demanded the Thraxian Prime Minister. "Liberation," said a new voice as Ambassador Chen joined the presentation. "While you've been discussing the Earth problem, we've been in contact with every species that your system has exploited, threatened, or manipulated over the past few centuries." The screens shifted again, showing communication feeds from dozens of worlds. Alien faces of species the Council members recognized as their subordinates, their resource suppliers, their compliant junior partners. But these aliens weren't showing submission anymore. They were showing something that made the Council representatives step back in shock. Hope. "The Corvani Collective has voted to withdraw from all Council trade agreements," reported one alien that looked like a walking crystal formation, but smaller and more delicate than the Zentari. "The Pelthari Assembly is declaring independence from Council oversight," announced another, this one resembling a cross between an octopus and a flower. "The Valdris Federation is requesting Earth protection for their home systems," added a third, whose species looked like living metal sculptures. One by one, dozens of species that the Council had considered safely under their control were announcing their withdrawal from the galactic system. But they weren't just leaving. They were actively requesting Earth's assistance in maintaining their independence. The Vex High Ambassador's tentacles writhed in panic. "This is madness. Without Council coordination, galactic civilization will collapse." Will it? Torres asked. Or will it finally become what it was supposed to be? A community of equals working together, instead of a hierarchy designed to funnel resources to a few dominant species. Dr. Reeves appeared on screen with her biological analysis. We've spent the past 6 months sharing our findings about Council biological harvesting operations with every species in your database. Turns out that when people learn they're being farmed instead of governed, they become remarkably interested in alternative arrangements. You're destroying millions of years of galactic development, the Zentari Trade Minister accused. We're ending millions of years of galactic exploitation, Torres corrected. There's a difference. The Council speaker made one final attempt to assert authority. Even if you've managed this temporary chaos, humanity lacks the infrastructure to manage galactic civilization. You'll fail. And when you do, the Council will restore proper order. Torres looked directly into the camera with the expression of someone about to deliver a checkmate. That assumes we want to manage galactic civilization. We don't. We want something much more radical than that. Which is, we want galactic civilization to manage itself. No more hierarchies based on age or technological advancement. No more legal systems designed to benefit dominant species. No more treating entire worlds as resources to be exploited. Torres paused. We want a galaxy where species cooperate as equals instead of pretending some are more equal than others. General Harrison stepped forward. Every species that's requested Earth's assistance will receive it. Not as subjects or junior partners, but as equals. We're not trying to replace the Council's dominance with our own. We're trying to eliminate dominance as the organizing principle of galactic civilization. The aliens in the Council chamber looked around at each other with growing realization. They had built their entire understanding of galactic politics on the assumption that someone had to be in charge. That hierarchy was natural and necessary. The possibility that civilization could function without dominance had never occurred to them. This is impossible, the Nixari representative said quietly. Galactic civilization requires coordination, requires leadership, it requires cooperation, Ambassador Chen interrupted. Which is what we're offering. Not leadership, not dominance, not management. Partnership. Torres made a gesture, and the tactical displays changed to show star charts marked with new territories. Every species that wants to maintain the old system is welcome to do so. Every species that wants something different is welcome to try that instead. What's not welcome anymore is forcing the choice on others. The Council speaker's voice was barely a whisper. You've destroyed everything we built. We've liberated everyone you controlled, Torres corrected. There's a difference, though I understand it might be hard to see from your perspective. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of electronics and the quiet breathing of aliens trying to process a fundamental shift in galactic reality. The Council had spent the day planning to solve the Earth problem through legal maneuvering and shows of force. Instead, they had discovered that the problem was much bigger than they had imagined. It wasn't that one species was challenging their authority. It was that their entire system of authority was being declared illegitimate. The infrastructure you've seized, the Zentari Trade Minister said carefully. What are your demands for its return? Torres smiled again, but this time the expression was sad rather than predatory. You still don't understand. We're not holding anything for ransom. We're giving it all away. Giving it away? Every facility we've secured will be transferred to joint management by the species that depend on it. No single group will control galactic infrastructure anymore. No one will be able to use resource access as a weapon against others. Dr. Nakamura added, We've spent 2 years developing management protocols that don't require hierarchical control. It's amazing what you can accomplish when your goal is cooperation instead of dominance. The Council representatives stared at the screens in something approaching shock. They had expected demands, negotiations, terms for surrender. Instead, they were being offered something they had never considered possible. Irrelevance. The galaxy will descend into chaos, the Council speaker protested weakly. Maybe, Torres acknowledged. Chaos might be better than the alternative you've been offering. But we don't think it'll come to that. Most species prefer cooperation to exploitation when given the choice. And if we refuse to accept this arrangement, then you'll be free to set up your own systems in your own space, governing your own worlds according to your own preferences. What you won't be free to do is impose those preferences on others. The Thraxian Prime Minister made one last attempt at intimidation. Humanity cannot maintain control over the entire galaxy. Eventually, you'll have to sleep. We're not trying to control anything, Torres replied patiently. That's what you're not understanding. Control was your solution to galactic organization. It's not ours. Then what is? Torres looked around at her staff, then back at the camera. Trust. The word hung in the air like a foreign concept, which for most of the Council species, it was. They had built their civilization on contracts, treaties, legal frameworks, and military enforcement. The idea that galactic society could function on something as unreliable as trust between equals was almost incomprehensible. You're naive, the Vex High Ambassador said quietly. Trust breaks down. Treaties are violated. Order must be enforced. Maybe, Torres agreed. But we've decided to find out what happens when you start with trust, instead of ending with it. The Council scoffed at Earth because you thought we were too primitive to understand galactic complexity. She paused, looking directly into each alien face visible on the screens. Turns out the complexity was artificial. Galactic civilization isn't complicated. Galactic exploitation is complicated. Cooperation is actually pretty simple once you stop trying to figure out who's in charge. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, through the massive viewports, they could see Earth ships maintaining position around the station. Not threatening, not aggressive, just present. A reminder that everything had changed in the course of a single day. The council had called it the Earth problem, confident they could solve it through established procedures and traditional power structures. Instead, they had learned that humans had been solving the council problem for years, with a patience and thoroughness that made their own planning look primitive. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in centuries, that might actually be a good thing.